The veil had barely hit the floor when Sienna Montrose's world split in half. The final fitting was supposed to be perfect, a moment of laughter and champagne and maybe a few happy tears. Instead, it ended with a trembling phone in her hand and a series of photos she would never be able to unsee. Her fiancé, Brielle Hawthorne, tangled in the sheets of someone who wasn't her. Someone who looked all too familiar. Someone Sienna had once called a friend. The wedding was 3 weeks away. The betrayal? A knife to the gut. But what made it worse, what made it unforgivable, was the silence. Brielle hadn't confessed, hadn't apologized. She'd smiled through the last dinner with Sienna's parents like her lips hadn't just whispered someone else's name hours before. And now, as Sienna stood in the back room of the bridal boutique, veil torn, mascara smudged, hands clenched so tightly her knuckles cracked, she couldn't feel anything except rage and shame and the suffocating urge to disappear. That's when the door opened, and in walked the last person she expected, Cassidy Laurel, CEO of Laurel Group, one of the youngest women to dominate corporate real estate in the Northeast. Ruthless, brilliant, feared, and Brielle's most vocal enemy. Sienna had only met her twice before, brief, tense charity events where Cassidy barely looked in her direction. It was no secret Cassidy hated Brielle, called her a manipulative social climber, said she was poison in silk. Back then, Sienna had defended her bride-to-be. Now, she wasn't sure of anything anymore. Cassidy stepped into the room like she owned it, gaze cool, blazer sharp, mouth set in that unreadable line she was famous for. She looked at Sienna like she was assessing the damage, like the crying woman in a ruined bridal gown was just another problem to be solved. "I heard," Cassidy said simply. "Of course you did," Sienna muttered, voice hoarse. "The city talks. And you listen?" "I listen when it matters. Then you know it's over." Cassidy didn't blink. "You don't deserve this." Sienna laughed bitterly. "You don't even know me. I know enough. And I know her." "So, what? You came to gloat?" Cassidy stepped closer. "I came to offer a solution." "Excuse me? Marry me instead." The room tilted. "What the hell did you just say?" Cassidy's eyes didn't waver. "You heard me. Are you drunk?" "I don't drink before noon." "You hate her." "With every breath." "So you want what? Revenge?" "No. I want justice. I want to take something from her that she'll never recover from. And I want to give you something she never could. Which is power, dignity, a name she can't erase. My last name." Sienna stared. "You can't be serious." "Deadly." "Why me?" "Because you're worth more than being someone's consolation prize. And because I know how it feels to be betrayed by someone you trusted." "This is insane." "Maybe, but you're considering it." And that was the worst part, she was. Because behind the fury and the humiliation and the ache that hadn't stopped since she saw those photos, there was something else. A small, sharp voice whispering, "Don't let her win." Sienna looked at Cassidy, really looked, at the controlled fire in her eyes, at the promise of vengeance cloaked in elegance, at the fact that she hadn't once offered pity, only possibility. "What would you get out of it?" Sienna asked. Cassidy smiled faintly. "Leverage, publicity, and the satisfaction of knowing she'll never forget the look on your face when you stand at the altar with me instead." "And what do you expect from me?" "Just this. That when we walk into that wedding venue together, you make sure everyone knows it was your choice. Not pretend, not performance. Real. As real as you're willing to make it." Sienna felt her heart thud once, hard, like it was waking up after being asleep for too long. "When?" "Now. Or never." Sienna hesitated. Her whole life felt like a broken fairy tale. But maybe, just maybe, this was how she took the pen back. She extended her hand. "Let's ruin her." Cassidy took it. Firm. Certain. With pleasure. The silence in the back seat of Cassidy's black town car was suffocating. Sienna sat with her hands in her lap, the diamond ring still cold on her finger, freshly slipped on moments before in a surreal haze. Cassidy hadn't spoken since they left the boutique. She hadn't smiled either. She drove conversation the way she did business, strategically, sparingly, and only when there was something to gain. Sienna glanced at her from the corner of her eye. Impeccably dressed. Expression unreadable. A woman who could command a boardroom with one glance and dismantle an entire legacy with 3 words. What the hell had she just agreed to? Where are we going? Sienna asked finally. Cassidy didn't look away from the window. To my place. You'll need to be seen there. If anyone asks, you've been staying with me for a few weeks now. That fast. Brielle's circle will start talking within hours. We need to control the story. Control or manipulate? Both. And you're used to that? Cassidy turned her head. Aren't you? Sienna's laugh was hollow. Apparently not well enough. Cassidy didn't respond. Her phone buzzed, and she answered it with a clipped, Laurel. A short exchange about contracts, followed by an instruction to terminate something with cause. Then she hung up and glanced at Sienna. You'll need a new dress. Something bolder. Your style says innocent. That won't work anymore. And what should I look like? Unapologetic. I've never been that. You will be. Soon. The driver pulled up to a sleek high-rise in Tribeca. Cassidy's building. Of course it was. All glass and steel and sharp lines. Sienna followed her inside, through private elevators and silent hallways, until they stepped into a penthouse that felt like the inside of a magazine cover. Everything was curated, minimal, cold. Not a single personal photo. No misplaced objects. Just elegance and distance. Sienna stood in the center of the living room, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. Maybe she had. Cassidy tossed her keys onto a marble table and removed her blazer, revealing toned arms and a backless black blouse that didn't help Sienna's nerves. You'll stay in the guest suite. The media won't question it. And what happens when people ask why you suddenly propose to a woman you barely know? They won't. They'll be too busy speculating about Brielle's breakdown. You're ruthless. I'm focused. Is there a difference? Cassidy approached slowly. Yes. Ruthless leaves bodies behind. I just break illusions. What illusion are you breaking now? That she was ever untouchable. Sienna exhaled. I don't know how to be this version of me you keep talking about. You don't have to be me. Just stop being hers. That's harder than it sounds. Then practice here. With me. So, this is a training camp now? Something like that. Sienna walked toward the window, the skyline stretching endlessly beyond. Do you even believe in love? No, figures. But I believe in loyalty. And revenge. And strategic alliances that can evolve. Evolve into what? Cassidy met her gaze. That's up to you. The tension stretched between them. Tight, silent, simmering. Not attraction. Not yet. But something unspoken. Shared hurt, maybe. Shared power. Cassidy broke it first. There's a dinner Thursday. Charity gala. We'll attend together. Let me guess. The dress should be bold. Feral, if possible. Sienna huffed a laugh. You're dangerous. I'm useful. She turned to go, pausing only once at the hallway. Rest. Tomorrow, you start becoming someone she'll never recognize. Sienna remained in the living room long after Cassidy disappeared into her suite. Alone with thoughts that wouldn't settle. This woman, this CEO she barely knew, had just offered her a kind of salvation that felt more like surrender. But there was a seed planted now. A quiet one. Underneath the vengeance and shock and cold elegance, Cassidy had looked at her like she saw something worth sharpening, worth protecting. And Sienna had agreed, not because she wanted to become someone else, but because she wanted to stop being the version Brielle had destroyed. The first morning in Cassidy Laurel's penthouse felt like waking up inside someone else's body. Sienna stood barefoot on polished marble, wearing a silk robe that hadn't been hers yesterday, sipping espresso that tasted like money and detachment. The guest suite was bigger than her old apartment. The wardrobe inside it had been stocked overnight. Cassidy's doing, obviously. Sleek, bold dresses. Tailored jackets. shoes with heels sharp enough to wound. Sienna didn't recognize the reflection staring back at her, and yet she didn't look away. At breakfast, Cassidy was already working, phone in one hand, tablet in the other, murmuring instructions in a voice made of stone and silk. Sienna hovered awkwardly until Cassidy looked up. "You'll need a new haircut. Is that how you greet people? If I wanted small talk, I'd hire a PR intern. You want me to look more like you? I want you to stop looking like someone who got left behind. Is that what I look like? To them? Yes." Sienna sat down across from her, trying not to let the jab dig too deep. "You're not exactly warm, are you? I'm not here to coddle you. I'm not asking you to." Cassidy slid a folder across the table. "These are the public events over the next 2 weeks. You'll attend all of them with me." "That's a lot of pretending." "Only if you're still pretending." "Are you saying you're not?" Cassidy met her eyes. "I never pretend." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of fittings and stylists and a personal shopper named Odette who had eyes like knives and didn't tolerate indecision. By noon, Sienna had a new wardrobe, a sleeker haircut, and a growing sense that she was no longer rebuilding her life. She was burning the old one down. Cassidy watched all of it in silence, making notes, approving selections, occasionally stepping in with a cool finger beneath Sienna's chin to adjust her posture. The first time it happened, Sienna flinched. Cassidy didn't apologize. She just said, "You'll have to learn to hold your own chin up. Until then, I'll help." That night, Sienna wandered out onto the balcony alone. The city stretched beneath her like an open mouth, hungry and shining. Cassidy joined her minutes later, barefoot, a glass of wine in hand. Her blazer was gone. Her sleeves rolled. She looked human. "I don't sleep much," Cassidy said. "Too many thoughts. Too many people waiting for me to slip." "You don't seem the type to fall." "Everyone falls. The trick is making it look like a step forward." Sienna looked at her carefully. "Why do you hate Brielle so much?" "Because she ruins what she touches. She manipulates. She lies. She breaks people and blames them for bleeding." "She did that to you?" Cassidy sipped her wine. "She tried. I didn't let her. But she left a mark. I've got better scars." Silence stretched between them. The air was colder now. Sienna's robe clung to her like second skin. Cassidy noticed. "You're cold." "I'm fine." "You're shivering." "You're observant." Cassidy disappeared inside and returned seconds later with a soft, expensive-looking shawl. She placed it around Sienna's shoulders, hands brushing against bare skin for the briefest moment. Sienna froze. Cassidy's touch was warm, intentional, but she stepped back immediately. "Don't mistake kindness for intimacy," Cassidy said. "Then what is it?" "Efficiency. You can't be convincing if you're trembling." Sienna turned. "What happens when I stop trembling?" Cassidy didn't smile. "Then we'll see what else you're capable of." That night, in bed, Sienna couldn't sleep. Not because of thoughts of Brielle, but because Cassidy's words looped through her head like a warning, or a promise. She didn't know what was changing, but something was. And it had nothing to do with revenge. Or, at least, not only. The first event came faster than expected. A charity gala thrown by one of Cassidy's investors, an elaborate affair drenched in crystal chandeliers and whispers behind champagne flutes. Sienna stood in front of the mirror in a midnight blue gown that curved along her body like it was designed just for her. She barely recognized herself. Odette had outdone herself. Cassidy hadn't said a word when she saw her. Just stared for a beat too long. But that beat burned. The car ride to the venue was quiet, tension thick as velvet. Cassidy briefed her on names, titles, alliances. Sienna nodded but barely processed it. Her skin buzzed from Cassidy's nearness. At the entrance, the cameras flashed. Cassidy didn't flinch. She wrapped an arm around Sienna's waist like it was second nature. Sienna leaned in slightly. The contact made her breath catch. "Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference." "Smile," Cassidy whispered at her ear. They need to believe you're wanted. That's not hard, Sienna muttered. Cassidy's fingers twitched against her hip. Inside, they played the part flawlessly. Cassidy commanded attention, her voice low and lethal, her presence magnetic. Sienna, surprisingly, held her own. She laughed when she needed to, touched Cassidy's arm when expected, smiled with the exact right amount of mystery. But when Cassidy excused herself to take a call, Sienna wandered toward the bar. That's when she saw her. Brielle. In red. Always red. Laughing, radiant, unaware. Until she wasn't. Their eyes locked. Time stalled. Sienna felt her stomach drop. Brielle's smile faltered. She stepped forward. But before she could say a word, Cassidy returned. Like, she could feel the shift in the room. She slid in beside Sienna, placed a hand possessively on her lower back, and kissed her cheek, slow and deliberate. Brielle froze. Sienna's heart raced. Cassidy leaned in, her lips brushing Sienna's ear. Let her choke on it. Sienna didn't respond. She couldn't. Not until Brielle finally turned and disappeared into the crowd. Cassidy's hand didn't move. You okay? She asked quietly. Not really. You were flawless. And you? I haven't had that much fun in years. Later, in the car, silence returned. But it was different now. Warmer. Charged. Cassidy drove her home, eyes flicking to Sienna's reflection in the window. You surprised me tonight. How? You stopped looking like someone broken. Maybe because I stopped being hers. Cassidy parked, turned to her. It suits you. Sienna didn't move. You kissed me. On the cheek. Still. Are we pretending you didn't like it? Sienna stared. Do you always do that? Push and pull like it's a game. No. Only when it matters. Does this matter? Cassidy's jaw tightened. Get out of the car, Sienna. But she didn't. Not right away. She leaned closer, inches from Cassidy's mouth. You're not untouchable. You pretend to be, but you're not. Cassidy's voice dropped. You have no idea what I am. Then show me. Silence. Thick. Crushing. Cassidy's hand reached up, slowly, and brushed a strand of hair from Sienna's cheek. Don't start something you're not ready to finish. Who says I'm not ready? Cassidy looked at her like she was fire, something beautiful and dangerous, and impossible to control. Because I won't let you run once you do. Sienna swallowed hard. Her heart was racing, her body leaning in without permission. But just as quickly, Cassidy pulled back. Not yet. Sienna stepped out of the car alone. The air hit her like a slap. Inside the penthouse, she stood in the dark, still trembling. But it wasn't from fear. It was from want. The next morning, Cassidy was already gone. A note on the marble countertop read, Meeting in Midtown. You're scheduled for lunch with Delaney for marketing. She needs to be seen with you. Wear something sharp. No signature. Just the neat, angular handwriting Cassidy used for everything. Decisive, controlled, inflexible. Sienna stared at it longer than she should have. Sharp. She could do sharp. She chose a black jumpsuit with an open back and pointed heels that clicked like weapons on the polished floor. When she entered the restaurant, Delaney gave her an approving nod. She wasn't exaggerating, she said. You clean up nicely. Thanks, Sienna replied, smiling just enough. How long have you worked for her? Long enough to know not to fall in love with her. Is that something people do? Only the ones who don't know better. Lunch passed in a blur of polite laughter and carefully curated conversation. Sienna played her role flawlessly. By the time she returned to the penthouse, Cassidy was already back, sitting by the window with a glass of whiskey and her phone pressed to her ear. She ended the call with a sigh and looked at Sienna over the rim of the glass. You were perfect. You weren't there. I didn't have to be. I got 5 texts. Sienna dropped her bag on the chair and kicked off her shoes. Do you always get reports on your fake fiancé? Only the ones I plan to keep. Sienna raised an eyebrow. That sounded dangerously close to flirting. Don't get excited. Too late. Cassidy stood and crossed the room in slow, deliberate steps. You like testing me. You make it easy. And what do you think happens if you push too far? Maybe I want to find out. Cassidy stopped inches from her. The heat between them was instant. Sienna's pulse quickened. Cassidy studied her, eyes on her mouth, her neck, her expression. You think this is a game, isn't it?
No.
It's survival dressed in designer clothing. And yet you're always in control. Cassidy didn't answer. She just brushed a hand lightly along Sienna's jaw. I'm not as untouchable as you think. Then show me. Cassidy's fingers lingered a beat too long. Her breath hitched, but she pulled away just before it became something more. We leave in 20 minutes. There's another event. I need 5. You have 4. The evening event was another power gala. Old money, older grudges. Cassidy introduced Sienna to CEOs, politicians, and socialites who all smiled too wide. Cassidy's hand never left the small of her back. At one point, Sienna leaned in and whispered, "You don't have to touch me every time someone looks at us." I know, Cassidy replied, but I want to. Sienna said nothing, but inside, something bloomed and ached and twisted. Back at the penthouse, hours later, Cassidy poured 2 glasses of wine. You handled tonight better than expected. I'm a fast learner. Cassidy handed her a glass, their fingers brushing. Sienna looked at her. Why are you doing this? Because I can. That's not an answer. Cassidy, Saturday, because when I saw you standing there in that boutique, shattered, I knew exactly how that felt. And I hate that she did it to you. I hate that she walks around thinking she's untouchable. And I needed to remind her that some people can't be discarded. And me? You're more than revenge now. Sienna swallowed. Her voice was softer. And what are you? Cassidy didn't blink. Dangerous. I already knew that. Then why are you still here? Because maybe I'm dangerous too. They stared at each other. Too long. Too open. Sienna stood first. Walked toward Cassidy slowly. Her hand grazed Cassidy's shoulder. Cassidy didn't move. Didn't breathe. If I kissed you right now, Sienna said, would you stop me? Cassidy's voice was a whisper. No. Would you kiss me back? A pause. Then yes. Sienna leaned in. Her lips barely brushed Cassidy's. But she pulled away before it became real. Then I'm not ready. Not yet. Cassidy closed her eyes for half a second. I'll wait. And Sienna realized, for the first time, that waiting might be the most dangerous thing of all. The days blurred into silk and steel. Dinners. Charity events. Interviews. Cassidy and Sienna had become a perfect performance. To the outside world, they looked like the power couple of the year, beautiful, calculating, magnetic. Inside the penthouse, the performance cracked in quiet places. Glances that lingered too long. Hands that brushed and didn't pull away. Arguments that felt more like foreplay than conflict. Sienna was changing. She could feel it in her spine. The woman who had once cried in a torn wedding dress was gone. This version of her walked in heels that commanded attention and stared down billionaires without blinking. But she also couldn't stop thinking about the way Cassidy had whispered, I'll wait. As if what was building between them was inevitable. The next event was a fundraiser for a hospital wing Cassidy had funded. It was formal, cold, and crawling with old men in tuxedos and smiles that meant nothing. Sienna wore a red dress this time. The same shade Brielle used to favor. She saw Cassidy's reaction the second she stepped out of the car, just the faintest hitch in her breath. Cassidy said nothing, but she didn't look away all night. At the event, Cassidy was flawless. Until she wasn't. It happened during a speech. Someone from the board made a tasteless joke about power-hungry women, and Cassidy's jaw clenched so hard Sienna thought she might break her teeth. After the applause, Cassidy turned sharply and walked out without a word. Sienna didn't think. She followed. Found her in a hallway near the back, hands gripping a marble ledge, eyes burning. Don't, Cassidy warned, voice low. Don't what? Don't pretend you understand. Then explain it to me. I don't owe you my trauma, Sienna. No. You don't. But you keep dragging me closer, then pushing me away like I'm dangerous. You are. Not to you. Cassidy turned. Her expression wasn't cold. It was cracked. He said that joke to humiliate me. To remind everyone that no matter how high I climb, I'll always be a woman in a room built for men. And you proved him wrong just by standing there. Not if I let him see me bleed. Then don't let him bleed here. With me. Sienna stepped closer. Cassidy didn't move. Her chest rose and fell sharply. You think you know me? I don't. Not yet. But I want to. Sienna touched her wrist. Cassidy looked down at the contact like it was foreign. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to break. Cassidy's voice broke instead. Not in front of them, but in front of me. Cassidy looked up. Maybe. The space between them shrank again. Sienna's hand slid to Cassidy's waist. If I kissed you now? You already asked me that once. And the answer hasn't changed? Cassidy's hand moved to Sienna's cheek. No, their faces were inches apart. The heat was unbearable. Sienna closed her eyes. Cassidy leaned in, breath against breath, mouths nearly brushing. Then Cassidy's phone rang. Loud. Jarring. She froze. Pulled back. Answered. Laurel. Her voice was ice again. Now's not the time. Send the contract to legal. She hung up without looking at Sienna. We should go. Just like that. Timing matters. You think this is just timing? I think this is dangerous. And Cassidy finally looked at her. And I'm not ready to survive you. Sienna didn't answer. Couldn't. Because she wasn't sure she was ready either. Cassidy didn't speak to her for the rest of the night. Not with silence meant as punishment, but with silence that sounded too much like restraint. Sienna could feel it in the way Cassidy didn't meet her eyes, didn't touch her shoulder when they stepped out of the car, didn't even say goodnight when she disappeared into her suite. That should have stung. It didn't. It thrilled her. Because now she knew. Cassidy wanted her. Not as a strategy. Not as a tool. But as something raw and real and unmanageable. And that terrified Cassidy more than any rival ever could. The next morning, the rhythm between them had shifted. Sienna made coffee first. Cassidy didn't correct her. They moved through the kitchen like people who had lived together longer than they had, brushing hands too often to be accidental. Sienna wore Cassidy's silk button-down, half tucked into jeans. Cassidy noticed. She didn't comment, but she noticed. The day was full of meetings, photo shoots, and a brief interview for a Women in Business magazine where Cassidy said things like, connection is currency, while never once glancing at Sienna, but always keeping her within reach. It wasn't until the evening that they finally had a moment alone. No events. No press. Just the two of them in the penthouse. Rain smudged the windows. Jazz played low. Cassidy poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Sienna without a word. You've been quiet, Sienna said. I've been working. You always say that when you're trying not to feel. Cassidy sipped her wine. You don't know what I feel. I know you didn't sleep last night. You heard me? I didn't have to. I felt it. Cassidy turned away. You're dangerous when you talk like that. Then stop pulling me closer. You kissed me first. I didn't. I almost did. There's a difference. Cassidy set her glass down. Do you want me to finish it? Not like this. Then how? When you're not hiding behind power. When it's not about Brielle. When it's about us. Is that what this is? Sienna stepped forward. You tell me. Cassidy's breath hitched. She looked almost unsure. That alone shook something loose in Sienna's chest. You think you're protecting me, Sienna said, but you're protecting yourself. You've built this empire, this image, this fortress, and I'm the first person who sees through it, and that scares the hell out of you. Cassidy opened her mouth, closed it, said nothing. So Sienna kept going. You're not bulletproof, Cassidy. And that's the first thing I ever liked about you. Cassidy finally looked at her. Really looked. You liked me? From the beginning? No. But now? Yes. God help me, yes. The silence between them was electric. Cassidy crossed the room, slow and deliberate, until they were breath close again. But she didn't kiss her. She reached for Sienna's hand,
held it. Just that.
Fingers entwined like something sacred. I don't do this, Cassidy whispered. I don't let people in. Then don't think of me as people. Think of me as the exception. Cassidy's grip tightened. I'm trying so hard not to break this. Maybe it needs to break. Cassidy's hand moved up her arm, along her shoulder, resting at the side of her neck. Her thumb brushed beneath Sienna's jaw, a touch full of restraint, of longing. I want to earn it, Cassidy said. Not just take it, then stop waiting. For a moment, it seemed like they might finally give in. But Cassidy leaned her forehead against Sienna's instead. No kiss. No rush. Just breath and warmth and a storm that hadn't passed yet. I'll make you dinner, Cassidy murmured. Sienna smiled. You cook.
No.
But I order well. And just like that, the tension softened, but didn't vanish. It curled around them like steam. Familiar. Waiting. Hungry. The sky had forgotten how to stop raining. It had been 48 hours of gray, of wet glass and city lights blurring into streams of silver, of Cassidy moving through the penthouse like a ghost dressed in power. Sienna watched her from the hallway, watched the way her shoulders never relaxed even when no one was looking, watched the way she spoke softly to her assistants, but never gently, watched the way she kept one hand on the edge of control at all times. It was maddening and magnetic. The air between them was charged with something neither of them named, thick with all the things they hadn't said. The space had changed. They had changed. Every time Sienna passed Cassidy in the corridor, their eyes caught and held longer than necessary. Every time they sat across from each other at dinner, their knees touched under the table and neither pulled away. But still, no kiss, no confession, no collapse. Only a slow unraveling. Sienna couldn't sleep. She wandered the penthouse barefoot, wrapped in a blanket she didn't remember grabbing, heart a knot of nerves and confusion and anticipation. She found Cassidy in the kitchen at 2:17 a.m., barefoot as well, her hair pulled into a low, lazy bun, a glass of water in her hand, a crease between her brows that hadn't left her all week. They didn't speak at first. Cassidy handed her the glass without asking. Sienna drank. Then, why are you up? I could ask you the same. You always deflect with questions. You always push with softness. Is that what I'm doing? It's dangerous, Cassidy said, stepping a little closer. How much you disarm me. I'm not trying to. That's what makes it worse. They stood in silence again, but now their bodies were closer, heat moving between them like breath. Cassidy, Sienna said quietly, what is this? You want a definition? I want the truth. Cassidy looked at her. Really looked. I want you. That's the truth. I want the way you see me. The way you don't flinch when I'm sharp. The way you remind me I'm not only what I've built. Sienna exhaled. Then stop stepping away every time we get close. I'm afraid I'll ruin it. And I'm afraid we'll never find out what this could be. Cassidy's hand lifted, hovered near Sienna's cheek, but didn't touch. I don't want to be a mistake for you. You won't be. You've just come out of heartbreak. You're still bleeding. And yet here I am, asking you to let me in. Cassidy's hand finally settled gently on her face. If I let you in, I won't know how to let you go. Then don't. And that shattered something. Cassidy stepped forward, rested her forehead against Sienna's, closed her eyes. Sleep in my bed tonight. Nothing more. Just sleep. But I need you near me. I need to know I'm not losing this before it even begins. Sienna nodded, followed her down the hallway in silence. Cassidy's room was minimalist but warm. Soft sheets, low light, the faintest scent of lavender in the air. Sienna climbed into bed beside her without hesitation. Cassidy faced her, their knees touching, fingers brushing. Sienna reached for her hand and Cassidy held it tight, like letting go might mean losing the ground beneath her. You don't sleep much, do you? Sienna whispered. I've never had a reason to feel safe at night, Cassidy murmured. Until now. You feel safe with me? God help me, yes. They didn't kiss, but their breathing synced, their fingers tangled. Cassidy rested her hand against Sienna's hip, light as a promise. If I fall, she whispered, I want it to be for something that matters. Then fall, Sienna whispered back. I'll catch you. They fell asleep like that, twisted in sheets and quiet, not as strangers, not as fake fiancés, but as two women who had been broken in different ways and were learning, slowly, painfully, to believe in something again. It wasn't love yet, but it was close enough to hurt, close enough to heal. Morning came slow and soft, filtered through gauzy curtains and the distant hum of the city below. Sienna opened her eyes to the scent of linen and lavender, to the sound of calm breathing beside her. Cassidy lay facing her, still asleep, for once unguarded. Her features were relaxed, lips slightly parted, the lines of tension that always gripped her brow finally gone. Sienna didn't move.
Didn't want to.
She just watched her for a moment, heart aching with something she couldn't name. Cassidy stirred then, eyes blinking open slowly, focusing on Sienna like she couldn't quite believe she was still there. Good morning, Sienna whispered. You stayed. You asked me to. Cassidy nodded once. Thank you. Sienna reached out, brushed a lock of hair from her face. You looked peaceful. I was. For the first time in a long time. The moment hovered between them, full of meaning and silence, and almost. Cassidy sat up slowly, letting the sheet fall from her shoulders. We have a brunch to attend. Board members. Boring. You mean public. Exactly. Sienna sighed. Do I have time for coffee? Cassidy smirked. You have time for anything you want. Sienna stood and stretched, the robe slipping slightly from one shoulder. Cassidy's gaze flickered, just for a second. Then she looked away. I'll see you in 20 minutes, she said, and left the room. At the brunch, Sienna wore a cream-wrap dress that hugged her in all the right places. Cassidy hadn't commented on it, but she hadn't stopped looking either. The event was tedious. Too many conversations about stock projections and global expansion. Sienna smiled when necessary, nodded when required. But her attention kept drifting to the woman beside her. Until everything froze. Brielle walked in. Alone. Radiant. Like she hadn't destroyed everything she touched. Her eyes scanned the room. And when they landed on Sienna, her entire body tensed. She walked toward them slowly, carefully. Cassidy noticed immediately. Her entire posture shifted, sharp and ready. Sienna, Brielle said, voice too soft to be innocent. It's been a while. Sienna stood her ground. Not long enough. Brielle blinked, clearly not expecting that. I didn't think you'd show your face around here so soon. Cassidy stepped forward. She has every right to be here. You don't get to control that anymore. I wasn't talking to you, Brielle snapped. But I'm talking to you, Cassidy replied, her tone like ice over fire. You hurt her. You discarded her. And now you want to waltz back in like you have a right to her attention?
No.
Not today. The room quieted slightly. People watched. Sienna's heart pounded. But she felt protected.
Seen.
Brielle stepped back, her mask cracking. You don't know anything about what we had. Cassidy's jaw tightened. But I know who she is now. And it's better than anything you ever deserved. Brielle left without another word. When she was gone, Sienna looked up at Cassidy. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did.
Why?
Cassidy looked at her, unflinching. Because I care about you. Whether I should or not. The drive home was quiet, but not cold. Sienna stared out the window, thinking of all the ways Brielle had twisted her, broken her, made her doubt her worth. And how Cassidy, for all her sharpness, had never made her feel small. Back at the penthouse, Sienna stood at the window, arms crossed. Cassidy joined her. You okay? I don't know. Talk to me. I thought seeing her again would hurt more. But it didn't. I just felt numb. Like she doesn't own any part of me anymore. Cassidy nodded. She doesn't. You defending me like that, it meant something. I know. Why did you say you care when you've spent so long pretending not to? Because I can't pretend anymore. Not with you. Sienna turned. So what now? Cassidy stepped closer. Now we stop pretending completely. And then fingertips touched. A hand at the waist. A breath between mouths. Eyes locked. And then at the very edge of it, Cassidy pulled back. Not yet, she whispered. Sienna's lips trembled with frustration and need.
Why?
Because when I kiss you, it won't be, because we almost did. It'll be, because neither of us can survive not doing it. Sienna stepped away, but her chest was pounding, because that moment was coming, and it would change everything. The penthouse was silent when Sienna stepped out of her room. It was nearly midnight. The lights were dim, the city outside pulsing in slow breaths of color. She wore one of Cassidy's oversized shirts and nothing else. She wasn't sure what had pulled her from sleep. Restlessness, maybe. Or something deeper. She found Cassidy in the living room, barefoot, in a loose sweatshirt, hair down. She was sitting on the floor with her back against the couch, a bottle of wine between her legs, one glass already poured untouched. Her eyes lifted when Sienna appeared, and something in them flickered. Couldn't sleep? Cassidy asked. Didn't want to. Me neither. Sienna sat beside her. Their knees touched. Cassidy handed her the glass. What are we doing? Sienna asked, not drinking. Being idiots, Cassidy replied.
Why?
Because I've never wanted something this much and been this afraid to ruin it. Then stop trying to control it. That's all I know how to do. Sienna reached out and touched Cassidy's wrist. Cassidy didn't move. I don't need you to be perfect, Sienna whispered. I just need you to be here. Cassidy turned her hand and interlaced their fingers. I've built my whole life keeping people at a distance. And I've spent mine trying to prove I was enough. You are. So are you. Cassidy's breath shook. You scare me. Because you care? Because I don't know how not to. The space between them collapsed like it had always been waiting to. Sienna leaned in slowly, giving Cassidy time to stop her. She didn't. Their lips met softly at first. Testing. Exploring. But the moment they realized it wasn't enough, it deepened. Cassidy's hand slid up Sienna's back. Sienna's fingers tangled in Cassidy's hair. The kiss was fire and salt, desperation and relief. It wasn't just want. It was need, long denied and now unstoppable. When they finally broke apart, both of them breathing hard, Cassidy rested her forehead against Sienna's. God, she whispered. I was not ready for that. Then you're not alone. Cassidy laughed, breathless. Then suddenly, tears. She turned her face, wiped at her eyes. Damn it. I don't cry. You do now. I hate it. I don't. Sienna cupped her face gently, made her look at her. Let it happen. Cassidy shook her head. No one's ever touched me like this. Like I'm not a weapon. You're not. Not with me. Cassidy crumbled then, leaned into Sienna's chest, arms wrapped tight around her waist. Sienna held her, rocked her slightly, kissed the top of her head. You're safe, she whispered. With me you're safe. They stayed there on the floor for what felt like hours, entangled, quiet. The wine remained untouched. When Cassidy finally looked up, her eyes were still glassy. You stayed, she whispered. You always say that like it surprises you. It always will. Sienna smiled, kissed her again. Slower this time. Get used to it. Cassidy didn't move. After the kiss, after the tears, after Sienna whispered that she was safe, she stayed there, head against Sienna's chest, eyes closed, arms wrapped tight around her waist like she was afraid that if she let go, the moment would vanish. But it didn't. It stretched, quiet and full of heat. The air between them was softer now. Not so much a storm as a slow burn. Are you okay? Sienna asked eventually, her fingers tracing light circles on Cassidy's back. No, Cassidy murmured. But I will be. Sienna smiled into her hair. That's enough for tonight. You still scare me, Cassidy added after a pause. Because I'm unpredictable? Because I think I'm falling for you, and I don't know how to do that without destroying it. Sienna's breath caught. Then maybe we both fall. Together. Cassidy lifted her head slowly, her face still flushed. Do you want this to be more than what we agreed? It already is. Cassidy stared at her like she was something she'd never been allowed to touch. Then she stood, held out her hand, and said, "Come to bed." Sienna took her hand without hesitation. This time, they undressed in silence. No words, no rush. Cassidy's shirt slid from Sienna's shoulders. Sienna's fingers opened Cassidy's buttons one by one, revealing skin and scars and softness. But there was no urgency. Just exploration. Just reverence. They lay down under the covers, bare skin against bare skin, bodies aligned but still restrained by something fragile and reverent. Cassidy's hands moved slowly, learning, memorizing. Sienna arched into her touch, her mouth parting in a silent sigh. But when Cassidy leaned down to kiss her again, Sienna stopped her with a hand to her chest. "Not yet," she whispered. Cassidy's eyes widened. Not with frustration, but with surprise. "Why?" "Because I want the first time to be when we both stop holding back. Tonight, there's still something trembling in us." Cassidy nodded once, leaned down, and kissed her temple instead. "You're right." They fell asleep like that, naked, wrapped around each other, but untouched in the way that still left their bodies aching. Morning came with golden light and slow breath. Cassidy woke first, watching the curve of Sienna's shoulder, the fall of her hair across the pillow. She brushed a strand away gently, then froze when Sienna's eyes opened. "Were you staring at me?" "Possibly." "Creepy." "Beautiful." Sienna grinned sleepily. "You're dangerous when you say things like that." "I'm dangerous when I mean them." They lay in silence for a while. And it was comfortable.
New.
Precious. Until the buzz of a phone on the nightstand broke it. Cassidy reached over and frowned. "It's Laurel." She wouldn't call unless it was urgent. "Answer it." Cassidy did, her voice shifting instantly into CEO mode. "Cassidy, go." Sienna watched as her face changed, hardening, tension creeping back in. "You're sure? A pause then. Fine. Set the meeting. I'll deal with it." She hung up and looked at Sienna. "What is it?" "Brielle. She's filed a formal complaint. Against you, against us. She's claiming the engagement is a fraud, that we're staging a fake relationship to manipulate shareholders and public image." Sienna sat up. "Can she do that?" "She can try." Cassidy stood, already reaching for her blazer. "We'll need to prepare a response. Get ahead of it." "So, we go back to pretending again?" Cassidy paused, then turned.
No.
"We go forward. We do the opposite of pretending." Sienna's voice was small. "And what does that mean?" Cassidy looked at her, and this time, there was no mask. "It means we stop running from what this is. Let them look. Let them talk. Let them see us. Because I'm not lying when I say I care about you. And I'm not going to let her take that from me too." Sienna stood, walked over, and pressed her forehead to Cassidy's. "Okay," she whispered. "Then let's show them who we really are." The press storm didn't take long to hit. By noon, Cassidy's name trended on 3 platforms. Rumors, speculation, think pieces titled "Fake Love" or "Corporate Strategy" flooded timelines. But Cassidy didn't flinch. Not this time. She stood at the head of the conference room table, spine straight, voice steel. "We make no apologies. Prepare a joint statement, clear, confident, and personal. We're not denying the relationship. We're confirming it. Publicly." The team around her froze. One of the executives, Michael, always sweating when things got complicated, shifted in his seat. "You want to go public with a fake engagement?" Cassidy's jaw tightened. "It's not fake anymore." Michael looked at Sienna, who sat beside Cassidy with her chin lifted, an expression unreadable. "Is this wise?" "It's honest," Cassidy replied. "And honesty is more powerful than any campaign we've ever built." After the meeting, Sienna followed Cassidy back to her office. She shut the door behind them, leaned against it, arms crossed. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. You just stood there and claimed me in front of a room full of executives who don't know how to process feelings." Cassidy sat behind her desk. "I've spent years turning myself into something unshakable. But this? Us? I don't want it to be part of the performance." Sienna walked over, perched on the edge of the desk. So we're real now. Cassidy's voice was soft. We always were. I just didn't know how to say it. Sienna leaned forward, brushed her lips lightly against Cassidy's cheek. Say it now. Cassidy looked at her, and for a long breath, neither spoke. Then Cassidy whispered, You terrify me, but I think I love you. Sienna didn't smile. She simply took Cassidy's hand and held it tightly. Then hold on to that fear, because I feel it too. That night, they returned to the penthouse. No events, no cameras. Just them. They cooked pasta together. Well, Sienna cooked, and Cassidy read the instructions out loud like it was a negotiation strategy. The laughter came easy. The touches came easier. Cassidy stood behind her at the stove, arms wrapped around her waist, lips at her neck. I could get used to this, Cassidy murmured. Then don't stop. I don't want to. They ate curled up on the couch, wine glasses half full, jazz playing low. Cassidy looked at Sienna like she was still learning how to believe this was real. But Sienna was steady, grounded.
Whole.
You're changing me, Cassidy said suddenly. Good. It's terrifying. Even better. Later, when the sky turned black and the city lights bled through the curtains, they lay on the couch, bodies tangled, mouths close. Cassidy hovered above her, fingertips on her skin, heart pounding. Are we ready for this? She asked. Sienna looked up, eyes dark with want. We've been ready. Cassidy kissed her. Fully.
Deeply.
No more hesitation. No more almost. And it would have gone further. It should have. But Cassidy's phone buzzed. Again. Reluctantly, she pulled away and grabbed it. One look at the screen, and her face shifted. What? Sienna asked. Cassidy didn't answer right away. Her voice, when it came, was quieter. It's someone I used to work with. Someone who knows more than they should. About us. About me. What do they want? Cassidy set the phone down slowly. A meeting. Tomorrow. Alone. Do you trust them?
No.
But I owe them something. Something I never wanted to explain. Sienna sat up. If this is going to work, you can't keep shutting me out. I'm not. Not now. But I need to handle this myself. Sienna nodded slowly. Then I'll wait. But don't make me wonder if I'm still part of the truth. Cassidy kissed her forehead. You are. You're the only part I'm not running from anymore. And yet, as Cassidy stared out at the city that night, something deep in her past began to stir. Something that could ruin everything they'd just begun to build. Cassidy didn't sleep. After the call, after the almost, after the way Sienna had touched her like she was something holy, she had sat in the dark, staring out at the city she had helped shape, wondering if the foundations beneath her were starting to crack. By morning, she was dressed in black, blazer sharp, eyes sharper. But something inside her was unraveling. She didn't let Sienna drive her. She didn't explain where the meeting would be, only said, I'll be back before sunset, kissed her hand, and left with a quiet apology in her eyes. The cafe was nothing like Cassidy's world. It was old, small, full of chipped mugs and too much natural light. She spotted Mara immediately. Same dark curls. Same too-sharp smile. Same air of someone who had once broken her and still knew it. You look exhausted, Mara said. Cassidy sat across from her. You look exactly the same. That wasn't a compliment, was it? Cassidy didn't respond. Mara leaned forward. I saw the headlines. You and your little fiancé. She's not little. And she's not fake. That's new. People change. Do they? Mara tilted her head. Do you? Cassidy folded her hands on the table. Why am I here, Mara? Because you owe me closure. You got that when I walked away. You walked away after sleeping with me for 3 months, after promising me I was different, after making me believe you could love me. Cassidy's jaw flexed. I was a mess. You were cruel. I was broken. Mara's voice lowered. You were scared. And instead of telling me that, you made me fall. Then you disappeared. Cassidy finally looked her in the eyes. Because I didn't want to be in love with someone who saw me only as a weapon. You used to like being seen that way. Not anymore. Because of her? Cassidy's silence was answer enough. Mara leaned back. You think she's strong enough for your storms? She already is. Then why are your hands shaking? Cassidy hadn't noticed. She shoved them under the table. Mara sighed. You didn't just ruin me, Cassidy. You ruined yourself. You spent so long being feared, you forgot how to be loved. Cassidy stood slowly. That's why I'm here now. To tell you I remember. And I regret it. Too little too late? Maybe. But it's not for you. It's for me. And for her. She turned, walked out into the cold morning light. Sienna was waiting at home. She opened the door before Cassidy could knock. No questions. No accusations. Just open arms. Cassidy walked in, buried her face in Sienna's shoulder, and finally let go. Later, after she had showered, changed, and sat curled on the couch in silence, she spoke. Her name was Mara. We were toxic. It started as a secret. Then it became a storm. I was cruel. I pushed her away the moment she saw something real in me. Sienna sat beside her. Did you love her? Cassidy nodded once. I think I wanted to, but I didn't know how. Not then. And now? Cassidy looked at her. Now I'm learning. And I'm terrified every day. Good. Cassidy blinked. Good. Because it means you care enough to be afraid. Cassidy let out a breath. I thought telling you would scare you off. No, Sienna said, taking her hand. It just makes me want to hold you tighter. Cassidy rested her head on her shoulder. This isn't how I pictured falling in love. Me neither. But I don't want anything else. Outside, the sky turned orange with late sunlight. Inside, two women sat in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. And for the first time, Cassidy didn't feel like she had to earn love by controlling it. She could just be. And that terrified her most of all. Cassidy couldn't remember the last time she had told someone about her childhood. Maybe never. Not like this. Not without calculation. She sat on the floor with Sienna, legs tangled, a blanket around both of them, the fireplace humming low behind them. The night was quiet. Safe. Sacred. My father was a lawyer, Cassidy said, staring into her glass of wine. Cold. Precise. He never raised his voice. Never hit. Just withheld everything. Approval. Affection. Warmth. My mother stayed because she didn't know who she was without him. I grew up in a house with long silences and expensive rugs. Sienna listened without interrupting. I learned early that control was survival, Cassidy continued. That emotions were weakness. That love was something people dangled in front of you and then took away the second you asked for more. She looked up, eyes glassy. I built an empire because I didn't know how to build a life. I destroyed relationships before they could destroy me. I wore power like armor and seduction like a weapon. She laughed, but there was no joy in it. And then you showed up. Clumsy, too honest, furious and beautiful, and so damn sincere it hurt to look at you. Sienna reached over, touched her face. I'm still all those things. You are. And you're more than you think. Cassidy closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again, softer now. You never asked me to change. But I want to. I don't want you to change, Sienna whispered. I want you to be free. Cassidy leaned in, kissed her gently.
Once. Twice.
Sienna pulled her closer. This time, the kiss deepened. Not rushed. Not desperate. Just full. Full of everything they hadn't said, everything they hadn't let themselves want. Cassidy's hand slipped under Sienna's shirt, slow and reverent. Sienna sighed into her mouth, fingers gripping the back of Cassidy's neck. They moved as if memorizing. Every inch of skin touched like a secret passed between them. They didn't speak. There were no words big enough for that moment. Cassidy lifted Sienna in her arms, carried her to the bedroom, laid her down like something sacred. She undressed her with care, pausing at every button, every clasp, Kissing skin revealed like it mattered, because it did. Sienna did the same. Cassidy's body trembled beneath her touch, not from fear, but from awe. And when they finally came together, fully, completely, it wasn't about sex. It was about permission, about trust, about letting someone see you with all the lights on and still choosing to stay. After, they lay tangled in the sheets, bare and breathless. Cassidy's hand rested over Sienna's heart. Still scared? Sienna asked, her voice soft. Yes, Cassidy said. But I'm not running. Then neither am I. Cassidy kissed her shoulder. You feel like home. Sienna turned to her, eyes wide, unguarded. So do you. They slept like that, holding each other like the world outside didn't matter. Because for the first time it didn't. Cassidy woke before Sienna. The light from the window painted soft gold across their tangled bodies, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Cassidy didn't feel the need to move. She didn't check her phone. She didn't reach for a schedule. She just lay there, watching the rise and fall of Sienna's breathing, the way her lips parted slightly in sleep, the way one arm was curled around Cassidy's waist as if she knew Cassidy might try to leave in the night. But she hadn't. Cassidy had stayed. And more than that, she had wanted to. Sienna stirred slowly, eyes fluttering open, finding Cassidy's gaze already on her. Were you watching me again? She whispered, voice still heavy with sleep. Maybe. You're getting sentimental. Terrifying, isn't it? A little. They smiled. And in that moment, nothing else existed. No headlines. No shareholders. No history. Just morning breath and quiet warmth and a kind of peace Cassidy didn't know how to live with yet, but was learning. What do you want to do today? Sienna asked, stretching. Cassidy thought for a second. Nothing. Nothing. Just exist. With you.
God.
Who are you, and what did you do with the ice queen I met in a conference room? She died, Cassidy said flatly, the moment you made me pasta and told me I wasn't scary. Sienna laughed and leaned in to kiss her. It was lazy and warm and perfect. They got up late. Cassidy, in nothing but an oversized button-down, made coffee while Sienna danced barefoot in the kitchen to some 90s pop song blasting from her phone. Cassidy pretended to hate it. She didn't. She loved it. She loved her. Halfway through their slow breakfast, Cassidy's phone buzzed. Her eyes flicked to it, and her body tensed. Sienna saw. Bad. The board wants a meeting. In an hour. About us. Almost certainly. Cassidy looked at her, expression unreadable. Come with me. To the boardroom? To everything. Sienna swallowed. Are you sure? I've never been more sure. They dressed quickly. Cassidy in black. Power restored. Sienna in navy blue. Elegant.
Sharp.
But her hand found Cassidy's in the elevator, and Cassidy didn't let go. When they entered the room, silence fell. 12 board members. Some older. Some younger. All of them staring. Laurel stood near the edge. Tense but ready. Cassidy spoke first. Let's skip the preamble. You called this meeting because of my engagement. One of the board members, Marlon, older, bitter, leaned forward. It's been disruptive. You mean it's made people talk? You're in the spotlight. Investors are nervous. They always are. It's their nature. And you're making decisions that appear emotionally compromised. Cassidy stepped closer. You want the truth? I love her. That's not compromise. That's clarity.
Gasps.
Murmurs. Cassidy continued. You've trusted me to lead this company through mergers, lawsuits, political scandals, and market crashes. If you're questioning my leadership now because I'm in love for the first time in my life, then maybe the problem isn't me. It's that you don't believe a woman can lead with her heart and still be ruthless.
Silence again.
Sienna held her breath. Cassidy turned to her. She makes me stronger. And if you can't see that, then maybe I've outgrown this room. Marlon sat back. Laurel smiled. And slowly, reluctantly, heads nodded. Meeting adjourned. In the hallway, Sienna stared at Cassidy. You said it. I meant it. You told them you love me. Because I do. They didn't kiss. Not there. Not yet. But Cassidy squeezed her hand and said, "Let's go home." The days that followed the board meeting were quieter than Cassidy expected. No scandals erupted. No investors pulled out. Instead, a subtle shift occurred. Some people, the ones who mattered, began to see her differently, not as less powerful, but more human. For Cassidy, that was the greater risk. Vulnerability had never been safe ground, but now it was sacred. She and Sienna moved through the penthouse like they belonged there. They cooked together, shared music, fell asleep on the couch halfway through old movies. And though there was still the weight of the past, it had loosened its grip. Until Sienna's phone buzzed. Cassidy was in the kitchen, pouring coffee. She noticed the way Sienna froze when she read the message. "What is it?" Cassidy asked. Sienna looked up slowly. "It's Brielle." Cassidy's face didn't change at first, but the stillness in her eyes was louder than anger. "What does she want?"
To meet.
"One last time." Cassidy set the coffee down carefully. "Why?" She didn't say, just that she needs closure. Cassidy nodded once, her movements tight, controlled. "And what do you want?" Sienna stepped closer. "I don't care about her, but I care about ending things the right way." "You don't owe her anything." "Maybe not, but I owe it to myself." Cassidy's voice was quiet. "Do you want me to say no?"
No.
"I want you to trust me." "I do. It's myself I don't trust." Sienna reached for her hand. "You're not who you used to be." Cassidy exhaled. "Then go. But if she tries to hurt you again, even with words, I'll destroy her." Sienna smiled softly. "I believe you." The meeting was set at a small bar Brielle used to frequent. Intimate, familiar, slightly too curated. Brielle sat at the corner table, a half-empty glass of wine in front of her, her hair perfectly arranged. She looked like someone trying not to look desperate. "You came," she said as Sienna approached. "I said I would." "You look different." "I am." Brielle tilted her head. "Does she make you happy?" "Yes." "More than I did?" Sienna didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." Brielle laughed once, low and bitter. "Then I guess I did you a favor." "If that helps you sleep, sure." Brielle leaned forward. "I didn't bring you here to fight." "Then what?" "I want to say I'm sorry." Sienna blinked. "For cheating? For all of it? For loving you the way I did, conditional, jealous, small. I see now what I ruined. And I want to tell you face to face that I regret it, that you didn't deserve it." Sienna sat back. "Why now?" "Because I saw how she looked at you. At the brunch. She looked like someone who wouldn't survive losing you. And I realized I never looked at anyone like that." Silence stretched. "I don't need your apology," Sienna said. "But I hear it. And I hope you find someone who can love you the way you want, without needing to destroy them to do it." Brielle's eyes glistened. "I didn't know how to love you." "I know. But someone does." When Sienna returned home, Cassidy was pacing the balcony. She turned the second Sienna stepped in. "Are you okay?" "Yes." "Did she apologized?" Cassidy blinked. "What?" "She said she regrets it. That she sees now what she lost." "Do you believe her?" "I don't need to." Sienna stepped into her arms. "Because I already chose you." Cassidy's body sagged against her, the relief physical. "I was afraid," she whispered. "I still am."
Good.
"Because fear means we have something to lose." Cassidy pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "Then let's never lose it." Cassidy stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, arms crossed, the city lights flickering below like a restless ocean. The folder in her hands felt heavier than paper had any right to feel. Sienna entered, barefoot, damp hair from the shower curling around her shoulders. "You're quiet," she said softly. "You don't do quiet unless it's dangerous." Cassidy didn't turn. "I got an offer today." "For what?" "A merger. International. Expansion into the London market. They want me to oversee the transition. Possibly for a year. Maybe more." Sienna stopped. "You'd leave?" Cassidy turned then, her expression unreadable. "They want me there." In person. To show commitment. Leadership. And what about us? Cassidy stepped forward. I haven't said yes. But you're thinking about it. It's a career-defining opportunity. You already redefined your career when you chose to stop hiding. Cassidy flinched. It's not that simple. It is to me. Silence. The air between them thickened. Cassidy's voice was quieter now. Would you come with me? Sienna blinked. To London. To wherever this leads. And do what, Cassidy? Sit in a glass apartment while you rebuild another empire. You'd be with me. I'm not a trophy you pack into a suitcase. Cassidy's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? Sienna stepped closer, her voice trembling but firm. You said I made you stronger. You said you wanted a life, not just a legacy. But the second something big comes along, you expect me to follow. Because I don't want to leave you behind. Then don't. Cassidy sat down hard on the couch, elbows on her knees, head in her hands. This isn't just about the job. It's about proving I can still lead after everything. That I can be taken seriously even after letting people see the cracks. Sienna knelt in front of her. You don't need to prove anything. Not to them. And definitely not to me. Cassidy looked up, and for a second, the CEO was gone. Just a woman.
Scared.
Tired. In love. I don't know how to want both. Then learn. With me. Cassidy reached out slowly, took Sienna's hand. If I said no to them, would you stay? I was never going anywhere. But I won't lose myself to stay beside someone too afraid to plant roots. Cassidy's throat tightened. You won't. I won't let that happen. Not again. That night, they didn't talk more about the offer. They just held each other. Cassidy's hands curled around Sienna's waist like she could anchor herself to her skin. And Sienna let her. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not run toward power, but stay still and let love be enough. Cassidy didn't sleep. Again. The offer sat on her desk like a live wire, daring her to touch it. She had read every page twice. She knew what was at stake. The money.
The prestige.
The statement it would make to the industry. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure what winning even looked like anymore. Across the apartment, Sienna moved softly through her morning routine. No tension. No cold shoulders. Just quiet distance, the kind that said, I'm still here, but I won't wait forever. Cassidy watched her over the rim of her coffee cup. Watched the way Sienna wore certainty in her body now, like armor she'd forged in fire. Cassidy had changed her. But Sienna had changed too. She wasn't the girl who stumbled into that engagement party. She wasn't anyone's placeholder. She was becoming something bigger. Independent. Unshakable. And Cassidy knew, deep down, she didn't want a version of Sienna who followed. She wanted the one who walked beside her, even if that meant slowing down. Cassidy didn't speak until after lunch. You got a call from Lydia, she said carefully. Something about a gallery? Sienna blinked.
Yeah.
They want to feature a solo series of my work. All the photos I've taken since us. Cassidy raised an eyebrow. You said yes? I'm thinking about it. Why wouldn't you? Because it's in San Francisco. 3 months. Silence. Then Cassidy nodded. You should do it. Even if it means we're apart? Even if it means I miss you so much I lose sleep. Sienna smiled, sad and beautiful. And what about London? Cassidy didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, she stepped closer, brushed a hand along Sienna's jaw. I think we both need to stop choosing between us and the rest of the world. We have to find a way to live in both. You think that's possible? It has to be, or this won't last. Sienna nodded. Then let's stop talking about what we'll give up and start talking about what we'll build. The rest of the day passed in a strange calm. Sienna left for a client meeting. Cassidy stayed behind, staring out at the skyline she'd once worshipped. Then she walked into her office, closed the door, and sat down. The offer still waited. She picked it up, held it, breathed it in like it might tell her something. And then, without thinking, she tore it in half. Slowly, deliberately. Not out of rage, but clarity. She didn't want to run anymore. Didn't need to prove anything. Not at that cost. When Sienna returned, the penthouse was quiet. Cassidy wasn't in the kitchen or on the balcony. Sienna pushed open the office door and froze. Cassidy sat on the edge of the desk, the torn contract in one hand, a glass of whiskey in the other. Her eyes met Sienna's.
Steady. Clear. It's done, she said.
What is? London. The offer. I'm not going. Sienna stepped closer, breath catching. You really didn't tell me first? I needed to do it for myself. Not because you asked me to. Not because I was afraid of losing you. Because I finally knew what I didn't want. And what do you want? Cassidy stood, walked to her slowly, took her face in her hands.
You.
A life. Not just an empire. But your legacy will still exist. But I don't want to be remembered for how far I could stretch myself thin. I want to be remembered for who I chose to be close to. Sienna kissed her. Hard.
Deep.
And this time, it wasn't relief. It wasn't desperation. It was home. It was certainty. And it was only the beginning. The airport was quiet, too early for chaos, too late for denial. Cassidy stood by the gate, hands in the pockets of her coat, watching Sienna adjust the strap on her carry-on. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The silence wasn't cold, just full. Sienna looked up. You're sure you won't come? You need this to be yours. Your city.
Your show.
Your name on the wall, without mine in the shadow behind it. Sienna nodded slowly. I'll call. Every night. I'll answer. You hate video calls. I'll survive. They smiled. It wasn't sad. It was something else, like the stillness before a tide comes back in. Cassidy pulled her close, held her longer than necessary. Be brilliant, she whispered. I'll try.
Don't try. Be.
When Sienna walked through the gate, Cassidy didn't watch the plane take off. She turned around, got in the car, and started planning. The apartment felt bigger without her. Louder in the quiet. Cassidy found herself reaching for things she never used. Her favorite mug, Sienna's playlist, the old hoodie Sienna always stole. She still ran the company. Still led meetings. Still made executives nervous. But at night, the apartment echoed. At night, she missed her laugh most. Sienna, in San Francisco, dove headfirst into her new world. The gallery buzzed with energy. Her name printed bold on white walls. Strangers stared at her work and saw pieces of Cassidy they couldn't name. Every night, she called. And every night, Cassidy answered. Sometimes with whiskey. Sometimes from bed. Sometimes still in her office with her tie loosened and her voice soft. I miss you, Sienna said once, 2 weeks in. Good, Cassidy replied. Why? Because I miss you too, and I want to feel it. Feel what? The proof. Of what? That this is real even when we're not in the same room. Sienna smiled, eyes glassy. Then it's real. 3 weeks in, Cassidy sent flowers. But not roses. Wildflowers. Bright, chaotic, alive. A note. Because you're the only thing that's ever made me want to be softer. For weeks in, Sienna's show opened. It was a success. Cassidy watched the live stream, heart racing like it was her on the stage.
She didn't call that night.
She just watched, cried a little, then began drafting something else. The surprise. Something Sienna didn't expect. The final choice. 5 weeks in, Sienna texted, coming home Friday. Late. Cassidy replied, I'll be waiting. She didn't go to the airport. Didn't want to steal her moment. But she cleaned the apartment top to bottom, lit candles, cooked dinner, set 2 plates, and on the counter 1 box. Small, simple, not flashy, but inside everything. When Sienna opened the door, she looked tired but glowing. Her eyes scanned the apartment, landing on Cassidy standing in the kitchen with nervous hands and a smile that didn't know where to settle. Hi, Cassidy said. Hi, Sienna whispered. You look terrified. I am. Why? Cassidy nodded toward the counter. Because I made a choice. But I want to ask you something before I give it to you. Sienna walked to the box, fingertips grazing the edge.
Ask.
Cassidy stepped closer.
Took a breath.
Do you want to build a life with me? Not just love me, but build a future, even when it's messy and uncertain and terrifying? Sienna didn't answer.
Not yet.
But she reached for Cassidy's hand, held it tight, and said, "Show me what's inside." Sienna's fingers hovered over the small white box. It wasn't velvet. It wasn't elegant. It was Cassidy in object form, minimal, sharp, unassuming until opened. She looked up once more. "Show me." Cassidy nodded, her heart pounding in her ears as she gently lifted the lid and turned the box to face her. Inside, not a diamond.
Not yet. A key.
Sienna blinked. "What is this?" Cassidy's voice was steady but low. "It's the key to a studio space. Your own. Upstairs from the new office I'm opening for my foundation. One I'm building for women like you. Women who've been discarded.
Dismissed. Replaced.
I want you to have a space that's yours. Not mine. Not borrowed." Sienna swallowed. Her throat burned. "You did all this while I was gone?" Cassidy nodded once. "Because I don't just want to love you. I want to build with you. Not just a home, but a world. One where you don't disappear behind me. One where you grow beside me." Sienna's voice cracked. "And the ring." Cassidy smiled gently. "That's coming. But first I needed you to know, this isn't about possession. It's about partnership. You always said you wouldn't lose yourself again. So here's proof that you don't have to." Sienna stared at the key, then at Cassidy. Then she stepped forward, dropped her bag, and threw her arms around her. They held each other like no space had ever been between them. When she finally pulled back, she cupped Cassidy's face and whispered, "Yes." Cassidy blinked. Yes to what? To all of it. The studio. The life. And if the ring's coming, then yes to that too. Cassidy laughed, eyes shining. "You're saying yes before I even ask?" "I already said yes. The moment you chose me over everything else." Cassidy reached into her pocket, slower this time. She pulled out a second box. This one small, black, unmistakably what it looked like. "Then let me do this right." Sienna gasped softly as Cassidy sank to one knee, still in her work clothes, hair pulled back, but her heart entirely exposed. "Sienna Lane Hart, you changed my life. You challenged me, broke me open, loved me, without asking me to shrink. Will you marry me and build a future with me where we both get to be whole?" Sienna dropped to her knees in front of her, tears running silently. "I already am." They didn't put the ring on right away. They didn't stand up. They stayed there, on the floor, wrapped around each other like they were learning how to breathe in sync. Later, they sat on the balcony. The city stretched wide around them. Sienna wore the ring now. Cassidy held her hand like it was the answer to every question she'd ever asked. "Do you think we'll be okay?" Sienna asked. "No," Cassidy said. "I think we'll be extraordinary. And when it gets hard, then we fight, but not against each other. Together? Always." They kissed. And this time, it wasn't desperate or cautious. It was a promise, a beginning. They had loved in pain, grown through doubt, fought through fear. But now they had everything. And they had chosen it, together. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.